Well, for more analysis of that situation in Syria, we can speak now to Omar Imadi, who is the Deputy Director of the Centre for Syrian Studies at the University of St Andrews. Thank you so much for speaking to us. We're now talking about an area of just 5 kilometres square that the jihadists still control. That's not a lot of territory. Does that mean this should be over fairly quickly, do you think?
Yes, I think in terms of the military battle, this really has been over possibly by the time Raqqa fell. Maybe some would say even when Mosul fell. But of course, that is not to diminish the military confrontation. We have around 500 very hardened fighters with a network of tunnels in this area. And they're going to fight to the very end. So on one hand, the military battle ended some time ago, but on another hand, there's a lot of symbolism here that we're seeing unfold.
Yeah, so this is really the last stand, isn't it, for the Islamic State group? And President Donald Trump said that it's going to be game over in the next few days as far as the Islamic State group is concerned. Does that mean he perfectly timed his announcement of the US troop pullout, or do you think he was probably still a bit hasty?
Well, I think usually American announcements are hasty. I think when it comes to this particular battle, I think it's one can fairly be confident that it's going to be over soon. It would be hard to imagine, as I said, a few hundred fighters stand up successfully to an international coalition and backed on the ground by very well-trained Kurdish fighters. So I think in this particular incident, it will be over soon. But I think what we should not lose sight of is the larger picture. The Islamic Caliphate project. This is something that we began reading about, and it started in the 1920s. Was the Muslim Brotherhood. Of course, it was a very different idea. It was far more moderate and reformist. But in essence, the idea of restoring the Islamic Caliphate is around a century old in what we might call the modern era. And this last manifestation of this attempt has been possibly the most successful in terms of the type of territory it controlled. It even had coins minted in its own name. It had a flag, an anthem, so many media outlets. So on that level, to see all of this now fall apart, it's absolutely fascinating. And to watch, the women and children and the fight, from all over the place, from Brazil, to Afghanistan, to Indonesia, China, Russia, and now here it is. And if you are a fundamentalist who believes in this idea, you can't, but watching this must be very traumatic to many. I think, but it would be a mistake to see this as the last manifestation. And I think therein lies the danger of this idea of a complete pullout without, as long as there's grievances on the ground. There's always, the possibility of recruiting people to an idealist utopian project. And in the Middle East, religious ideas tend to be very popular. And I would be very much concerned for us to see this as the very end of militant utopian religious projects in the Middle East.
Yeah, and of course, as you say, a lot of people pouring out of these towns and villages, these last Islamic State group strongholds. And that presents a challenge, doesn't it, to the Kurdish forces to try and work out who's who. Because, of course, some of the people coming out might not be innocent civilians. They may just have decided to leave under that guise and perhaps pop up somewhere else.
Right, and here, you mentioned the key word. How do you define civilian? The humanitarian aspect of this is just so tragic. Would you consider a civilian, a woman who watched a video by ISIS and who lived maybe somewhere in Australia and who decided, she was attracted by this idea and who left everything and came to Syria and joined? not necessarily, to commit violent acts, but, attracted by the way in which this utopian Islamist idea was presented. Would she be considered, civilian? When you see the way in which the Iraqi justice system is treating some of these mostly women, it's yet another tragedy unfolding. I think, what is needed is precisely the opposite of this, is to show these people universal values of a very different type, that that they shouldn't be treated in the way they were treating others, for example.
Indeed. Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much.